Here, let's we get both of us.
Yeah, we do.
Kind of.
Yeah. A
B.
B.
X. ABX.
1 2 1 2 1 2. Oh, Chandler's here. Hey.
Hey, you're here. All right.
Have a seat.
I thought you weren't going to be doing the show.
No, he's not.
Huh?
I thought you weren't doing the show.
I'm gonna be here for like half an hour, and I gotta bounce.
Huh?
So I gotta leave in about half an hour. But I'll introduce the show, and then you guys will use this because I forgot the camera at home. So
And then
give me 1 second.
Are we live?
No. Oh, we're live on YouTube.
live on YouTube. So grab a chair.
Here, use this chair.
Where's the third chair?
Right there.
We'll just share the mic. You know. Use that chair. And I'll use this. I'll just get in between. There you go. Tight squeeze. Tight squeeze.
That's good. Welcome to Freeze Feet is Stinky.
This is so cozy. Where's our Mevo unit?
What's what?
At the house.
Where's our Mevo unit?
I said I forgot it at the house.
You have it at the house?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep. Thank you, sir.
Welcome to the Geeked Out Tired Edition. Cool, right? It's a sippy cup from Disney.
Oh.
Yeah. Jeremy got it for me.
Oh.
That's what happens when you have good friends.
Oh. What's going on, folks? It is Geeked Out right here on Dovetail Radio. Folks, we got everybody here.
Yeah.
I'm your man, JQ. This is Free. This is
Yo.
Chandler.
yo.
See, Chandler's just barely awake right now.
Right.
He's had a long...
It's not that I'm barely awake. I'm just friggin' exhausted.
He's exhausted. So I'm going to sit here and introduce the show real quick, and then I'm going to leave it to these two guys because I got to get out of here, unfortunately. So,
You
yeah.
have beers to drink.
Huh?
I said you have beers to drink.
He's got work to do.
I got work to do. So, yeah. Welcome back, guys. It's
Yeah.
great to have everybody here at the
For
table
the first time in forever.
for the first time in like over 2 months.
2 months.
Over
Oh,
2
wow.
months. And
Well, okay. Oh, that's right. Because when you came back from Hawaii,
Mm-hmm.
I had to miss that show because I
Yeah.
had that. Yeah. Okay.
So in over 2 months,
So-
we haven't been here together.
And then basically I've been hanging with you for the last week.
Right?
Uh
Well,
huh.
we're going to get into that.
Oh,
after the
yeah.
introduction and everything. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, we're gonna get it. We're gonna kind of clean the slate here.
So it's funny though, like this past weekend, like we had New York Comic Con, Q here had Foodie Fest, and everybody in our crew had something to do. Like Jeremy was in Disney, like he went to Disney for the weekend with his family. So that was
You
kinda
went
cool.
where?
Everybody had something. Disneyland.
You went to Disneyland?
He went to Disneyland.
Disneyland. Okay.
Right? All right, this is crazy, man.
yeah, this is definitely great. I mean, this is cool. I'm just happy that everybody's here.
Right?
I'm just happy everybody's here.
Finally.
So yeah, so
In one piece.
in one piece, in
Yeah.
one piece. So definitely, you guys. I'm so happy you guys are here, and we're gonna get this show started. We're gonna. I'm gonna start it off. Oh, we're gonna start it off. We're just, basically, you guys, as Free had said, you guys were in New York all weekend. So let's go ahead and let's just start it off with tell us about your trip to New York.
Well, first off, my trip actually started in Baltimore.
Yeah, he was
The
in
weekend
Baltimore the week
before.
before.
Yeah, which I have to say, Baltimore is one of the few remaining true Comic Cons.
Yeah, like actual comics, man.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Let's get this camera all set up here.
Yeah, don't worry.
There-
Just keep
there we
talking. Just keep talking.
Okay,
Just
so-
keep talking.
There we go. Okay.
Well, yeah,
now we're
so
getting
you
the camera.
started in
Come on,
Baltimore.
scoot over here, Free. Let's squeeze in here.
There we go.
There
There
we
we go.
go.
Look at that.
Okay.
You can see my fat face. All right. So yeah, you were starting in Baltimore, and then what? Like a week later, you didn't even come home for nothing.
No,
You went
no.
straight from Baltimore to New York.
I went from Baltimore straight.
Wow. So how's the Baltimore show though? Like, what's the difference between that show and any other show?
1,000,001 comic creators.
Really?
1,000,000. I mean, just
Like creators, like not a lot of celebrities.
I think there's like 2 celebrities there,
Oh, okay. That's
and
weird.
the celebrities they have are related to comics.
Oh, see, that's what I like. Like
Yeah.
when they bring in like celebrities that are actually attached to comics or something comic involved, and not just like random like like
Someone from a TV show.
yeah, exactly, like a
Yeah,
vampire
so-
show or something. You know what I mean?
Or let's bring in the voice crew from this game.
yeah.
It's like,
Like-
okay.
It's like I'm gonna get a signature from a voice
And
guy.
you know, hey, I'll say this: it's not that I'm knocking shows that bring those guests in, but call yourself what you are. You're a media show.
Yeah, you're a pop culture show.
Exactly.
Right?
You know, if you
So-
to sit there and use the term Comic Con. I mean, technically,
you can't
while
do it.
San Diego owns the right to that, they don't. I don't think they honestly can say that from a moral standard that they can use that term either.
Like,
Because
morally they can,
So
but-
little of that shows about comics anymore.
Well, you know, it's weird, like because I have a different take on that. When I do San Diego, I still see a lot of comic vendors. I still see a lot of creators. I still see a lot of comic involved media, but it's more about the media instead of the comics.
Well,
So-
look, okay, but yes, there are lots of comic vendors, and yes, there is the artist alley. But then you look at the bulk of the vendors and how many of them are comic book vendors.
Yeah, that's
versus
true.
how many of them are selling
Like toys.
collectibles, you know,
Posters.
stuff like that. I would say probably at this point in time, maybe 25% of the exhibitors at San Diego are comic book dealers.
Yeah, well, that's true. Well, the sections that I go in are like small press and the artist alley. So small press still has comic related stuff. So that's where I go.
Yeah.
There's again, San Diego's a whole other story because you have people that just go for celebrities. So that's their Comic-Con experience. Like for me and Jeremy and all the rest of the crew, we actually go to where the comics are made or the comic people are.
Yeah.
Yeah, so. But yeah, anyway, we're talking about San Diego. We just came back from New York.
We got off base. So no, Baltimore. Baltimore started out. The gentleman that started Baltimore is Mark Nathan, and hats off to him. He does a wonderful job. He has built that show to become the predominant comic book show
Good job, Mark.
in the country, if not the world.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember back when I think their attendance was maybe 40,000 people.
Oh.
And now their attendance is up in the 80,000 people range, if not higher.
Now, see, don't get me wrong. 30,000 people is still a lot.
It is.
But when you're getting from 30,000 and you build it up to like 70 to 80, then you know you got something successful.
30,000 basically would be a mark that would be considered the high end of a medium-sized show. Your small shows are going to be less than 10,000.
Yeah.
Then you have your medium shows that are going to be from like 10 to about 40, 50,000. Then you start getting into your large shows that are 50 to 100,000,
Yeah.
and then you're getting into your mega shows, which are 100,000 plus.
Which is like New York, San Diego, the one in Brazil,
Brazil, yeah.
right? London, like those international ones.
I don't know if I don't think London is at that point yet.
Really?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
I'm not aware of London having more than 100,000 people at their show.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think the
First
last
off,
time.
if they had that many people on the island visiting,
It would sink the island.
You know.
Well, last time I heard it was about 80,000. So
Maybe, yeah, that might be true. So, but yeah, Baltimore, like I said, you're going to have your solid core, and we're talking about that's one of the few shows that you're always going to see Walton Weezy Simonson at.
Oh, okay. Ooh,
You're
nice.
going to see you're gonna see the vintage creators coming out to that every year.
You gotta love it.
That's part of their normal con routine. Tom Palmer, who is a classic inker. That's one of his shows that you see him at every year. So and Heroes Initiative, they always bring in some really good people.
Yeah.
They bring in again some classic creators. So you know that when you go to Baltimore, it's going to have a list of solid comic book creators. That there's going to be plenty of people to get stuff signed by.
That's awesome.
So, what?
Just FYI, last year the London show drew 133,000.
So last year London went into the 133,000. So
Which London show is that?
MCM.
the MCM.
I know, but they have like 7 or 8 different shows.
Well, at least one of them went to 130.
Yeah.
So that's good. Good for them. I mean,
Is that the MCM London show that's that many?
yeah.
Wow. Okay, then I stand corrected. I didn't realize it was that big.
Well, there's certain shows that like for example, like London, they would have 3 or 4 shows a year.
MCM.
One of them would do 130. One of them would do 30. So
Yeah.
but anyway, man. So you went from Baltimore. You actually stayed up in that area and then went directly to New York.
Yeah, we
Right.
drove from Baltimore to New York, which you know what the drive's like because you did it yesterday.
Yeah.
And we got up to New York. What was it, Monday evening, and got settled in, and then Tuesday had a business meeting that took place on Tuesday while getting stuff ready, picking up books that were arriving. We shipped, I think it was 8 cartons of books.
Wow.
Or 8 boxes of books from the Las Vegas office to New York.
To
we
get
had to
signed
pick
and
those up.
everything. Yeah.
Stuff to get signed. And then Wednesday we set up. And then Thursday the chaos started.
Oh man. See, the thing is, you say that Thursday the chaos started. Honestly, like I got there. I think Wednesday night, Thursday.
You were there. You and Craig arrived Tuesday. What was
Tuesday.
it, like midnight Tuesday night?
Yeah, so let's say Wednesday. The chaos was already started. Like the pace that Desert Wind Comics goes through when they do these shows, big shows, small shows, but most of the big shows, it's just amazing to see the process because you guys are at such a fast pace and everything has to be accurate. Every number, every dollar accounted for, and it's crazy to see that process that you guys go through at every like big show.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's kind of cool.
Considering what we do, dealing with signatures, we have to be as precise as we can.
Yeah.
We have to be as careful as we can. Being that we do a lot of multi-signature books,
Yeah.
that really adds to the complication of things because you have most people, they could just take the books to one creator, get them signed, that's it, be done with them.
Yeah.
Now, with us, they're being multi-signed, so they go to one creator, they come back to the booth. Now we may have a stack of books that just got signed by Brian Azzarello that now we have to break some books off that have to go to Jim Lee, and some books that have to go to Lee Bermejo or other creators.
Yeah.
So while we have a large stack of books that just got signed by one creator, now we have to break them down and they get reassigned
Into
to the
different
different
stacks.
pockets
Yeah.
that are used to sort stuff out. And then we have to make sure that we coordinate all that with our witnesses because as an example, someone like Brian, where we may have already gotten stuff signed early on in the show,
Yeah.
and now we have to take more stuff that had come in during the show to him later on in the show. So it's not unusual for certain popular creators that we may have to go see them 2 or 3
Yeah,
times in
multiple
the
times.
show.
I mean, it gets complicated, man. Yeah, I've seen the complication firsthand. So, but yeah. See,
How was the show for you? Now, let's talk about you, though. I mean,
it was a great show.
You came in and you originally you didn't know what kind of table time you were going to have, and
Yeah.
it just so happened that that the table opened up for a solid day that you didn't even
Yeah.
think you were going to have.
Yeah, yeah.
So let's hear about your experience.
Well, when I first, like, I did it last year, and so this year I kind of knew what to expect. Last year I didn't know, and it just gang rushed me. I mean, from the minute I sat down to the minute I left the table, it was go go go. So this year I knew how to deal with it. So, but yeah, getting the opportunity to sit and have people come up and everything from New York and from international really, it was weird because I actually had some return customers from last year.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and that's the exciting thing is when you see that happening, that you have a creator who makes his first appearance at a show in a region that he hasn't been to before, that maybe he doesn't have a customer base built in that
Yeah.
region. And after he makes that first appearance, now going back the next year and having some of those fans come back out because they want to get more.
Yeah,
And
no, it's great.
that's just kudos to you for what you bring, and what you do as far as your craft. So good
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah, it was kind of cool, especially like the ones that came international. I had a guy from South Africa. He came, Finland, Germany, like all these internet people were saying, "Oh yeah, we remember you from last year, so we wanted to stop by and get your new stuff." And I was like, "Really?"
Yeah.
I was so not like aware that people actually remembered me from last year. So it was a good feeling. New York, people say like, "Oh, New Yorkers are so harsh and brass," but I'm like, they're like the nicest people so far that I've met. Like San Diego is nice, but they're not as nice as New York for some reason. Maybe because it's stressful, maybe 100,000 people in front of them or whatever. But in New York, like everybody knows what they want, they go and get it, and then they just relax and have a good time. And so yeah, it's kind of cool. I did about 100 sketches this past weekend, which is normally I do 100 sketches in a day, but this time I was doing more sales and more talking and helping out with you guys a little bit, helping like Joe Rubenstein and the other artists that were there, like Larry, were just making sure that they were comfortable. Um, but yeah, it's always a great experience to go to New York and just experience the city, like how the heartbeat of the city just, the traffic. The traffic is horrible, but I wasn't the one driving.
Please,
So
I'm still trying to get over that. It's
You know,
like, oh my God.
it's
Get
funny.
out of the way, folks. Come
Oh
on.
my goodness!
Make up your mind.
Like the honking of the horns, like it's literally like the heartbeat of the city, like like everywhere you go. And so I wasn't driving, so I didn't have that stress that you had.
Ugh.
But because I could observe it, the city has so much energy in it. Like just the city alone, not even the Comic Con, and then there's that. But like just the city alone is really, really vibrant, and it's really kind of cool. So just to experience that again, it's always wonderful going back to New York. So
The one thing about New York, you mentioned the comparison of New York to San Diego. Part of it is when you consider with New York, comics have been such an integral part of that city
Yeah.
for so long. I mean, you had DC that was based out of New York from when it started. You have Marvel based out of New York. So the two largest publishers in the world of comic book memorabilia, that's where their headquarters were.
Yeah.
You have all these creators who back in the day, they didn't have FedEx or UPS. They had Pony Express.
Pony
But,
You had
but no, I
stagecoaches.
mean, I know like talking to Joe Sennett, who lives in Saugerties, which is 2.5 hours north of New York City. And he would tell me about how what he would do is he'd get his work done,
Yeah.
and then he'd take a trip down to the city, and he'd spend a day in the city, take care of business and everything.
Yeah.
Or he may spend 2 or 3 days in the city, take care of business, and then go back home again.
Yeah.
And usually take the train. So and you consider you have all these creators, whether they were living on Long Island or whether they were living in, like I said, Socrates or any of the outlying areas.
Yeah.
And the fact is that they all still had to come to New York
To New
City.
York City, yeah, to Manhattan.
I don't even have a clue how many comic shops there really are in New York City.
Oh, jeez.
And the stuff that you are constantly seeing at those shops that pop in and pop out. the West Coast cannot even compare to that.
No.
So I think when you look at the two shows, I think that's part of it also, is that
Yeah.
there is more of a comic book culture that is built into the New York show because of it being New York versus San Diego. While you do have comic books, but you have more of a Hollywood culture
Yeah.
that
Exactly.
is
Yeah,
based
exactly.
in
Yeah.
San Diego. So
Well, I mean, a lot of people would say that New York was like, comics didn't start off in New York, but because Marvel and DC based themselves out of Manhattan, that it was like the start of the American comic book culture in America. You know, with Timely Comics and all that. Again, New York, and especially because a lot of people are saying like, well, DC and New York are based out of New York, like the city. Like Gotham is coming. Let's be honest, Gotham is New York, right? And Marvel, Spider-Man, Daredevil,
Four.
Fantastic Four, they're all based out of Hell's Kitchen,
Out of
New York,
New
Manhattan,
York,
all
yeah.
that kind of stuff. So like you said, the culture has already been ingrained throughout, I mean, what, so many years, 75, 80, 100 years, or whatever it is, being in New York. And so the people there already know, through generations, how important comics are to them. So,
Yeah.
it's really cool, man. Like, I love all the New York people. They're so awesome. So,
You know, it is interesting. The people that we see year after year after year, and the fact is that they sit there and they save up for that one show a year.
Yeah.
They don't travel anywhere else.
Nope.
They save up for that one show. I mean, you know, they might do traveling where they'll go to like a local show that's 50 miles away. But as far as most of those people, you don't see them traveling like getting on a plane, flying to another city to go to another show or something. At the same time, and this is actually a conversation I had with Beth, Chris Claremont's wife, at one point.
Chris
talking about-
Claremont! Okay.
we were talking about the difference between East Coast shows and West Coast shows. And in the sense that the East Coast shows, there isn't a week that doesn't go by that you won't find a show somewhere within driving distance.
Yeah, that's true.
And driving distance is a couple hundred miles.
Yeah.
You know, you consider that, just as an example, the distance from Baltimore to New York, you're basically talking about 3.5 hours.
That's not too
in
bad.
that 3.5 hours, you basically are going through Baltimore, you're going through Philadelphia, you're going through Trenton, New Jersey,
Wow.
going into New York. I mean, and all the townships, all the boroughs and everything that are in between, all that area is nothing but pretty much solid civilization.
Yeah.
Where you have communities that are there. So you would, like I said, you would end up having these little shows and big shows spread out all within a matter of a week or 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Versus the West Coast, you look at something on the West Coast, and let's face it, you have, looking at Las Vegas, it's a 5-hour drive to Los Angeles. It's a 6-hour drive to Phoenix, Arizona. It's a 6-hour drive down to San Diego. It's about an 8-hour drive to San Francisco.
Oh, something like 8 and 9.
So, and what's in between?
Nothing. There's desert.
You might see a couple.
Oh, you got Bakersfield.
You might see a couple shacks, and that's about it.
Well, you got Bakersfield. Bakersfield is a pretty good Comic-Con. But again, hundreds of miles away from each other.
exactly. So, it's the West Coast is different just simply because the cities are so spread out in comparison to what they are on the East Coast.
Yeah.
But again, New York has a whole different feel to it.
Yeah.
The people there are different. At the same time, I'll be honest with you. I've run across plenty of New Yorkers or East Coast people who are real, whats, trying to take advantage of systems and stuff like that.
Exactly.
So, you're always going to have those no matter where you go. But for the most part, the people in New York are, I think, really good people, fun people to deal with.
Oh yeah.
And they appreciate what's going on at the show and what's being done.
Yeah, absolutely. Like they're a lot of them. I mean, again, there's different cultures, West Coast and East Coast, East Coast, like they're focused on what they want to get, but at the same time they don't lose track of, oh, I like this. I don't know who it is. I don't know what the artist is or who the artist is, but I like it. I'm gonna get it, and then I'm gonna learn about that artist. And on the West Coast, it's basically if you're not Chris Evans or if you're not, Jim Lee. Oh well, I don't care. I got stuff to do. I got places to go. So at least in New York, they'll stop and say, you know what, I like your stuff. I'll support you. So that's really cool. I dig that. Man, we had some adventures, man.
Well,
Woo.
yeah.
We've had some adventures together.
I was just it's funny because being that we had some people with us on this trip that had not done these trips with us before, I'm kind of curious as to what went through their minds, especially someone like Craig.
Yeah, I was just about to mention Craig. Like he's never been outside.
A young man. He works in our office. In his early 20s. Never been to the East Coast, and so being that he's in our office, he hears us talk about things. He sees everything in our office going on. He's worked San Diego, and he's worked a couple of, I think he's done 1 or 2 shows here on the West Coast, like Los Angeles or something. But that was the extent of it. And taking him to New York, honestly, I think he got hit with major culture shock.
Oh, big time. Well, okay. See, the thing is, like, with Craig, he's a great guy, by the way. So if you're listening, Craig, thank you for coming out. But because he's never been to these, he's never had to get on a plane to go to a show. He's never had to deal with all the baggage, like all the baggage claim stuff that you have to go through. He never had to deal with such a high impact show like New York. Like San Diego, it's high impact for the people that do witnessing and all that. But for this show, everybody had to wear multiple hats. I'm the artist. I was supposed to just sit there and do art stuff and draw and sew stuff, but I'm over there helping you guys out. With the packing and building and all that.
And I'll give you an example of several other differences between San Diego and New York. San Diego, we rent a house which can basically sleep about a dozen people. The refrigerator is full of food. There's plenty of food there at the house, so you have an opportunity to eat before we leave the house for the show floor. In San Diego, we have a different setup in our booth where we actually have a section where we have a small refrigerator. We have a section that actually has food and drink in it. So we always have food and drink available to people who are in the booth, so that when they get hungry,
they can
it's
just
readily
eat something,
available
right?
to them. New York, we don't have that. New York, we're staying in hotels. So we're kind of at the mercy of what's around us. We also, with New York, we have traffic that we're dealing with when it comes to transportation back and forth. Mostly, I was going to say mostly when we go in, but then leaving, it's amazing how long it can take you to get into that into the Lincoln Tunnel. Oh my God!
Getting there and leaving is horrible. Like it was so weird because it takes about an hour just to get through the tunnel, right? And then on the way out, about a half an hour.
The tunnel, but
to get
from the time we leave the hotel to the time that we get onto the New York side and we're on the New York streets, and then of course the New York streets. You have a situation where you have all this traffic coming out of the tunnel, and it basically can go one direction or the other direction. And then you have all this other traffic, and you have people trying to go where? They're trying to get to the convention. But the problem is the tunnel is right there where the convention is at. So not only do you have the traffic coming in for the convention, but you also have the traffic of people trying to get into the tunnel. And so it just complicates things even more. And I know at one point, as an example, we're trying to turn left on this one street, and we sat there, I want to say for 15, 20 minutes,
at least,
because the traffic trying to turn left on that street was constantly blocked by the buses that was coming from the cross traffic.
And then you got the pedestrians.
And you have the pedestrians
that don't care if it's go or not.
And so here it is, it's your turn. by the rules of the road, it's your turn to pull into the lane of traffic.
Mm-hmm.
But doesn't work that
It doesn't
way.
work that way on the island.
Doesn't work that way on the island. Yeah, it's every man for himself.
Yeah.
And that's why it's funny. I say whenever I go to New York, I turn into a different driver.
Oh, he does. It's crazy.
You know, I rarely use my horn here in Las Vegas or anywhere else for that matter,
Mhm.
other than New York. New York, that horn gets used, and the reason for it is because that's how they speak.
That's how they speak to each other.
Roll down the window. Hey, yo, buddy, come on, come on, get out of the way.
Right. And at the same
Come
time, they're
on,
honking their
stop
horn.
tying your shoelace in the middle of the friggin' street. Get up on the curb.
Come on, I'm driving here.
Yeah. So, just.
But yeah.
It's an experience. It is an experience. I remember when I was younger, growing up in Los Angeles, and I was told, that, East Coast and West Coast, totally different.
Mhm.
And I never really understood that until I went. And even when I went for the first time, I didn't quite grasp it. It wasn't until I'd been there multiple times. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, yeah, now I get this.
Right. Then you finally see the culture of what they do there.
Yeah, but like I said again, there's things that honestly they're better people about how they deal with stuff than
Mhm.
we are on the West Coast. Everyone has their goods and their bads.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everyone has their goods and their bads. So, it's so like I said, it makes it a very interesting, dynamic show.
Mhm.
Business wise, we do about the same amount of business at New York Comic Con that we do at San Diego,
Yeah.
but we have one less day to do it in.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
that creates a real intensity level. Also add to it now. Fortunately, knock on wood, New York Comic Con this year moved Artist Alley closer. Thank you to the main floor. The Artist Alley is not on the main floor like it is in San Diego.
Mhm.
For us in San Diego, Artist Alley is about as close as you could get for a vendor.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
for us. New York, though, different story.
Yeah.
It used to be that New York, they would have the artists in another hall that
Mhm.
you'd have to walk down this long walkway in one direction,
Yeah.
basically heading north. And then last year, they actually moved the artists to the far south into the hall.
Yeah, that was horrible.
And,
Wow.
and to make things worse, the AC wasn't working all that great in that hall
Yeah.
either. So
Yeah. Right. Like
you had
Ken Lashley and all the
these
rest of the guys,
people-
they told me about that.
Yeah, you had
Yeah.
all these people there that with the AC not working well. So this year we were fortunate enough that they put them right below us,
Mhm.
and so it made it a little bit easier for us. But that also meant that they had to move the celebrities to a different location, so they
Yeah.
moved them further away. But for us, that works out just fine because the bulk of our signatures are comic
Comic
creators
artists,
and not
yeah.
necessarily celebrities.
Yep. Yep.
So anyway, like I said, it's an experience.
Yeah, I'm telling you. Well, you know what? It's about 2:40 right now, so we probably got about 20 minutes left. Let's talk about the Legends Tour, the Desert Wind Legends Tour.
Okay.
I know that the Legends Tour, you guys literally do all these legendary comic artists from like Silver and Bronze Age, and current. But the Silver and Bronze Age creators that you guys work with to get signatures and everything, a lot of them, they don't do comic conventions anymore. I mean, Larry Lieber does, only for you guys.
Yeah.
But guys like John Romita Sr.
John Romita Sr. no
Yeah.
longer appears at shows.
Yeah.
Sal Buscema no longer appears at shows. For the most part, you're not going to see Joe Sennett
Mhm.
appearing at a major show like that anymore.
Yeah.
Especially one, he might drive to a local one, like maybe up in Albany or something. That's an hour drive. But a 2.5, 3 hour trip, which turns into a 5-6 hour round trip.
Yeah.
He's not going to be doing
Not
that
gonna be doing
anymore.
So
And-
what do you guys do though?
What's that?
Like, what do you guys? You actually go to such a
So
location,
what we
right?
do is and all this is through relationships that we've built with these creators over the
Mhm.
years. It's not something that you just sit there and it's like, oh gee, I think I'm gonna reach out to this guy and see if I can show up at his house.
No, it doesn't happen. It's not that way.
But this has been this is 10 years that we have built these relationships.
Yeah.
And for the most part, what we do is we go to their homes. We're invited in their homes to come in, sit down with them, and like in the case of Mr. Ramita, we'll either sit in his study,
Yeah.
which is his office, or on the back patio, depending on what the weather
Yeah, the
is
weather.
like. And it's funny because whenever we go, my wife will sit in the living room talking with Mrs. Ramita, and boy, the stuff they talk about.
See, you know the funny thing is, when we were leaving, I was telling Mr. Marita, I was like, next time I'll sit down on the country with you and talk a little bit. And first thing Sharon said, no, this is my time.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. No, again, it's that Sharon does cherish the opportunity. She has
Yeah.
a very good
Yeah.
relationship with Virginia Ramita, a very close one, and so she enjoys that time that they have. So, but back to what we were saying.
Yeah.
So we drive to the individual creator's house. We'll sit down. We'll go in with 2, 3, 400, 500. I remember one time we went into Mr. Ramita's house with 800 books.
800. Now, see, the reason why I like what you guys do when you actually go to their houses or whatever is comfortable for them is so that way they don't feel the pressure of having to do it all at one time or really fast.
Yeah.
They can take a break. They're comfortable in their own homes. They can have coffee or whatever they do, and they can actually do this without having that anxiety of doing it at shows.
Well, that and the travel that's involved,
Yeah.
and oh, now we got to park. Yeah, absolutely. Again, as they get older, you want to try to make it as comfortable for them as you possibly can.
Yeah.
And so it's like, as an example, in the past, we've only seen Mr. Ramita. We see him twice a year, once in the spring, once in the fall. But what's happening now, because it's he is getting older,
Yeah.
and the fact is that he's not able to sign as quickly as he used to.
Yeah. Well, not only that,
So
you got to
what-
look at he's signing 400 books at one time.
What's that?
You got to look at it like he's signing 400 items at one time, like in one session.
Yeah.
So now you're thinking about doing it a different way, right?
Well, no. What we're looking to do is just make more trips to New York, and that way, like we did, we visited with him back in August. So that way we knew that coming off of San Diego, we would not have as many books for him in one time.
Yeah.
So we were able to kind of split them up and take a certain number of books with them, when on the trip in August, and then
yeah.
we continued to take in more books after the August trip was over with, and then we got those signed in October. And so we'll probably do the same thing next year. As we'll probably go into New York. I want to say probably early spring, and then maybe do another trip early summer, and another one at the end of the summer, and then the fall trip. So what we'll do is we'll break what used to be done in 2 signings, break it up into 4 signings, so
good.
it doesn't put as much stress on them.
Doesn't put as much stress. The customer gets their books earlier, because they don't have to wait so long.
Yeah.
It just makes it a better situation for everybody,
Yeah,
including
yeah.
you guys.
But,
and Sharon gets to visit in
that
Virginia.
works. Obviously, that works with certain creators.
Yeah.
Other creators, we don't necessarily have that option to do.
Sure.
But so back to the Legends. Basically, this is our chance to be able to get customers' books signed by these creators, and like I said, we've been doing it for 10 years now. We started doing it back in 2008, and it's grown, and people now contact us going, oh, you guys are the ones that do the Legends, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, that's the one.
So, and honestly, it's also the situation where we now are actually having, legendary people approach us and say, hey, listen, I understand that you do these types of signings. We're, is there a way that we could work something out? And it's like, absolutely.
Absolutely. We'll find a way.
As it is, we unfortunately, we end up losing. Eventually we end up losing these Legends as
Yeah.
time goes on, You know, being that we lost Lynn Wein, we lost Herb Trempe, we lost
Yeah.
Joe Simon. I mean, the list goes on. These were all people that did at one point or another sign for us during the
Yeah,
Legends
yeah.
tour. So that just means we simply have to add new people to
the
make it
list.
enjoyable
Yeah.
and work for the fans.
So, one of my Legends Tour stories. We're gonna get into this now.
We are. I
Because-
was waiting for this to come along.
Okay.
So, okay, let me set this up.
All right, set it up.
Let me set this up. So, okay, so one of the, basically, we just got through signing with Mr. Ramita,
Mhm.
and our next signing that afternoon, or late afternoon, early evening,
Yeah.
is with Mike Kaluta.
Now, if you don't know who Mike Kaluta is, he's a legendary artist for the Shadow, King Conan, and like a whole bunch of fantasy art books and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, he
a
was
legend.
part of what was called the studio.
Mhm.
And basically, you had Barry Windsor Smith,
Yeah.
Mike Kaluta.
Yeah.
You had Bernie Wrightson,
Oh,
and then you also had Jeffrey Jones, and they were kind of considered Beatles of comic books back
Yeah.
in the 70s,
Mhm.
where their style was unique. It was cutting edge. People were just they wanted it bad. I mean, I would say Mike's style, to a certain degree, to comics is what Peter Max was to commercial painting and
there you
stuff.
go. Yes.
You know, just
Good reference.
something that basically really caught people's eye
Uh-huh.
and caught attention. And so we reached out a couple years ago, and he was open to us having him be part of our Legends tour. We
Mhm.
saw him one time last year, and so here it is. We go to Mike's house, and we walk in with Jason, our witness.
Yeah.
You were there, and you know, for me, part of it is I wanted to me, it's important for you as a creator
Mhm.
to get a chance to meet these guys and maybe have a few minutes of their time
Yeah. A few
to help
conversations.
you hone your craft, even if it's only in a few words of wisdom,
Yeah.
little pearls
Absolutely.
that they might be able to pass on to you. You know, that's what I see as the value.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And so we now first off, okay, so we pull up to Mike's house, and it's an old apartment building that is on the west side of Manhattan,
Yeah.
up in the 100 block range, or 100 Street range, and we come into the building, and first thing is we're looking for his name on the door ringers.
Right. There's
And
no
we
name.
can't find his name. Now, fortunately, we knew what unit he was supposed to be in, so we push the button on that unit, and immediately, no voice or anything, the door clicks and it lets us
Right.
in. And so then we end up finding the elevator, which was kind of
It's an
funky
old timey elevator. Like you actually have to open a door to get into the elevator, and
No. You have to open a door to then slide another door open.
yeah, it's old. It's an old building.
Yeah. And so, and he's up on one of the top floors.
Yeah.
And it just so happened another couple came walking in to the elevator, we're lucky for us because we weren't quite sure.
We're like, how does this thing work?
You know, first off, looking at the buttons on this elevator, it's kind of like, you know, okay, let's see, this was built when?
Right.
Back Fred Flintstone days or something? I'm not sure.
It's like petroglyphs instead of
But
numbers.
so what do? We push the button for the floor we want to go to,
Mhm.
and the elevator starts going up ever so slowly.
Oh man.
And so we get to this one floor, and it stops, and we're like, okay, we're here. And Free opens the door, opens what I call the inner door,
the sliding.
and then the outer door opens, and there's this
Little old
lady
lady.
that's standing there.
Yeah.
And Free goes stepping out, not realizing right in front of him was a number of the floor, which was not the floor we were supposed to get off on.
Yeah. I don't know. It's weird, man. It's a weird elevator.
So it's like, oh, Free, no, come on, we're not there yet. Oh, man, okay. He gets back in the elevator, and we end up taking the elevator up to the floor that we finally get to, and we walk out of the elevator, and we go. And before we got there, I said to Free, I said, you know, I think you're really going to get a kick out of Mike's apartment.
Yeah.
Just knowing Free and the way he is. And so Mike opens the door, he greets us, and we come walking in, and Free's just kind of looking around. He's going, I love it, man. I love it.
It's like an eclectic museum of everything in the world. Like
Oh yeah,
everything.
did you see like the headphones and stuff and the face masks, the old gas mask face
yeah,
masks?
like old aviator helmets and everything. Like so a lot
it
of
was a
military
mishmash
stuff.
of everything.
Yeah, it was crazy. Crazy.
And then so you walk in and there's his living room, and he actually has his art table that is right there as part of his living room.
And he's working on a piece at the time.
So okay, now that I've set that all up, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, so we're sitting there and we're talking, and he mentioned that he had he fell like a year ago, and his hip was still in pretty bad shape, and so he couldn't do his own dishes, like wash his dishes, because of the angle of how he had to stand and everything, and he could only do like one dish at a time, or else his hip would get like really really bad in pain, and so. I didn't mention this while we we're talking and all this kind of stuff. And then just before he started signing, like doing all the signatures, I told him, you know what? I'm going to go wash your dishes. He's like, oh, no, you don't have to do that. But I could tell, he needed me to wash his dishes. So I went over there and I washed his dishes while listening to the stories he was telling while he was signing. And so I washed Mike Kaluta's dishes. Out of all the things I could have done, I could have drawn with him. I could have sat there and just listened to his stories. No, I started washing his dishes.
I have to admit, it was a first.
It was at first, or probably only. So it was fun. I mean, just to be a part of the situation, and who could say that other than me?
Honestly,
It's my story
I was
now.
actually getting a little worried
Why?
because I was not sure if it was going to stop there, and if you weren't going to say, Mr. Kaluta, can I go clean your toilet for you too? Or something?
I'll make your bed.
I didn't know. Hey, how about if I wash your clothes?
Right, I'll water your plants by the windowsills. But no, it
was funny.
So I did that, and he was very graceful. What is it? Grateful. He was very thank you. He was very grateful. But the funny part is when the next day we went out to Virginia. And we went to do the signing with Sal Basimo. And we told the story to Sal, and he actually reached over, shook my hand, he's like, that's a great thing you did for him. Thank you. So that was like, wow, this is really kind of cool. And so now my story is your story now, but my story kind of translated into meeting with Sal, and Sal's a great guy too, by the way.
He is. Sal's a character. He really is. And hopefully you guys out there will be able to see something that we got from Sal, very special, that's for Geeked Out LV.
Yeah.
And it was funny because when we first asked Sal about it, he's like, oh, okay, I can do that. And then he came up with this other idea. And Free and I looked at each other and we just started laughing. We said, yep, we got to do it. We got to do it.
That's coming later, so, keep an ear out. But yeah, and so it was funny because with Sal, he's like, oh yeah, hey Chandler, you better pay me or else I'm gonna send Nunzio and Carlos after you. And then what did he say? He's like, see, you think I'm joking, but this is real.
Yeah,
he's a funny guy.
It's funny. Now, at the same time, we gotta be careful because of what you just said.
Right. There is no Nunzio. There is no.
No.
Technically.
Again, it's when you talk about where these guys came from.
That is true. Yeah.
They came from the old neighborhoods. They came from the old neighborhoods in the Bronx. They came from the old neighborhoods in Queens and places like that. So
yeah, all the rough boroughs.
They came from that neck of the woods. So yeah, basically what Free was referring to is we had just finished up a sketch op with Sal.
Yeah.
And so Sal's like, hey, here are all the pieces. And, our normal routine is that he would get paid for the balance of everything once all the pieces were done. So he's like, okay, here are all the pieces. Hey, come on, give me my money.
Give me my money.
But he's...
jokingly.
Yeah, but yeah, he's very much he did it in a joking way.
Yeah.
because honestly, there are times where I remember the first time I did it with him, and I was going to send him money in advance. He's like, "No,
No,
no, just
cash
we'll
on
wait.
delivery.
We'll
Yeah.
wait." And I said, "No, I want to make sure you." He says, "No, I completely trust you. You pay me at the end."
Yeah.
That's and the reason for it is because he realizes that he's going to have the sketches all the way up to the point when I take them from him, and then he gets paid like any other
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's he likes to joke around with that whole with the whole Italian
the
thing.
Nunzios
Hey,
and the
I have
Anthonys.
Nunzio that's gonna come. Nunzio's gonna come knocking on your door.
You know, I gotta tell you, like seeing the original artwork that he did on the covers and some of the other stuff that he did, even after all these years, he still has the golden hand. I mean, his artwork is just spectacular. You see it in person. It's sometimes when you see it online, on all that stuff, or you see it secondhand or whatever. When it's in the comics, you don't get the full registration of how just immaculate these things are. And his artwork was, I mean, even to this day, is still so good.
Solid. It's
Yeah,
solid lines.
Yeah,
I mean,
love it.
yeah.
So Sal, great job, man.
He really has not lost his touch at all.
Mhm.
And that's one reason why I enjoy doing some of the work I do with these guys is
Yeah.
because honestly, they have such a solid craft
Yeah.
that you look at a lot of the younger guys, and it's like, and I understand, obviously you're talking about someone who has a lot of experience,
Mhm.
but it's also the fact that they take that much pride in their work.
Yeah, every line there's a reason for it. Some people they just scribble, whatever, do what they do. But these guys took the time and so many years to perfect it that they know exactly what they want, the standard that they're at, and they don't dip below.
Yeah.
So that's really
That's they want to
inspiring.
maintain that standard, and actually, to a certain degree, it's kind of sad because it's like I remember the day that Mr. Ramita told me he was no longer good doing sketching,
Yeah.
and I'm like, "Sir, why?" He says, "Kid, I just can't perform. I can't draw the way I used to."
Mhm.
And I said, "Sir, you don't understand. You could give a squiggly line and the fans are going to be ecstatic." He goes, "No, I get that. But I have a standard for
Yeah.
myself and I can't meet that standard." And it's interesting that just shows you the difference in the generations
Yeah.
of people.
Yeah.
You look at people today and how much they're willing to shortcut things in order to get something. And it's not, they didn't shortcut it because they ran out of time. They shortcutted it because they didn't want to take the time.
Yeah, exactly.
And yet you take these guys and it's like, no, they want to make sure that artwork is perfect.
Exactly. To their standards.
So
So
here again, that's another reason why I try to expose you to
Yeah,
these guys is so that you can learn from this, and then you can pass on to
Right,
the younger guys.
the work ethic and the standard that you stand to. Okay, so I think we're about done almost. We probably got about 2 minutes left. I want to do a shout out to Dave over at Mojo Tactics in Hawaii for visiting me all the way from Hawaii to New York. We also got Manlik from New Extreme out in Hawaii. He came from Hawaii to New York to come see me, and of course a bunch of other stuff. But I'm gonna claim it. Also, I wanted to shout out to Quincy JQ over here. He did Foodie Fest for me. Well, not for me, but he did Foodie Fest and
He covered.
And he did a great job, and putting together the stage and everything. And from what I hear, the bands did an amazing job, and so did all the crews. So thank you, DefTal, for that. Also, Jeremy, I wish I could have gone with you to Disneyland, but I had New York, so I mean it's a trade-off. And and I got this thing. Look at that.
You go to Disneyland anytime.
Right? Look, it's a sippy cup thingy. But yeah,
It's
he
a
got me
what?
this. It's a sippy cup. You drink out of his thumb.
Are you serious?
Yeah. So thank you for that. Again, De Niro.
Did you get
good
and-
job?
I love it. And it's
So-
from Disneyland. It's from this. Oh my God.
All right, so check us out again on DefTal.tv, DefTal Radio, and all the DefTal resources on YouTube and all that, Instagram, Facebook, and all that. So, on behalf of Chandler Rice, JQ, and Free, and of course everybody else here at DefTal, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Are we we clear? Are we clear? Wow, right on the 3. Sweet.
That's hilarious. I love how you guys just ended that.
Next time,
Yeah.